Hey yo, be that one to lead us through darkness. See that sunshine on our daughters and sons on the front line. Something's gotta be done now. It's our time.
Good morning. It's so good to see both of you ladies. Always, just uplifting for me to see both of your faces, get some time to check in, talk about the week, see how you both are doing. I know it was birthday on Thursday for Erica, so happy birthday. And just celebration of your life, because you are just an amazing queen, and just you play such a huge role in my life and the lives of so many. So celebration on you and your life.
Thank you.
And of course, yesterday was the passing of notorious RBG, and that hit hard for us as women, and the movement and the legacy that she has. And so we will all most definitely vote, because that was her last wish, right? And we are going to push everybody else to vote and hope that nobody is appointed prior to the election occurring. So on that note, big hugs to both of you. I wish I could just hold and squeeze you both. I think a lot of our queen friends were doing the ugly cry yesterday. So with that being said, the last episode, we went ahead and we're talking about the reopening of schools. And with so much that goes into going back to school, we were looking at what is a crucial element. It's connecting and building relationships, establishing the culture of the classroom virtually, getting ready for the in-person if you're not in person already. And so, Abby, you had the wonderful idea, which I absolutely loved, to check in with some of the kids in our life. And we are super blessed to have really cool kids in our lives, varying in age ranges and varying in where they're going to school. So today we're just going to go ahead and talk about the conversations we had with our kids.
I just want to say, obviously RBG is a big hero for a lot of women. But when we think about, life heroes, people who we were able to actually grow up with, there's obviously people like MLK and Cesar Chavez, who are these figures that we never really got a chance to know and see how they impacted the world until after they passed away, right, in the aftermath. But RBG was like one of our live heroes, and I'm still devastated. I'm still shaken. And I was like super down yesterday. But even in preparing myself to talk about our kids today, that's one of the things that lifted me up, is realizing how amazing our kids are, how resilient they are, how, I'll just start us off, if that's okay, with a common theme as we were talking to the kids was around how much love they expect and they want from the world, right? And how much they care for other people. So I had, for example, my niece, Jada, who I said, how do you feel about not being able to go to school? Obviously, she wants to be in school so she could be with her friends. And her response was,
something I like about doing this from home is that it's keeping us all safe, and we don't have to go through wearing face masks all day at school.
And it was a common theme throughout every conversation that we had to the kids. It was going back to, taking care of each other. And so that gives me hope. That gives me a lot of hope in terms of what we can look forward to the future. And, RBG will be, just like all our other heroes that have passed, a big force and a big influence even after her passing. And I hope that our kids get to see that. And I know that they definitely, like we have, will reap the benefits of all the amazing work and her legacy.
There are good things also going on despite all of the tragedy, right? And the more that we can stay positive, the more that we can go ahead and shine light on that hope, the more that we can do that for our kids. And I love the fact that the kiddos that we talk to were so open. And I think that goes back to being that one, right? The relationships that are built allows for students to feel comfortable, to feel open, to be all up in their feelings, to cry, to be upset, and embracing that. I'm really excited that our kids are feeling that way, and I'm really hoping that we could, all be that for for the kiddos in our lives.
In my head, I'm visualizing all the pieces, the clips of the kids who kept saying like, yeah, they miss being at school and they miss being with their classmates, but they miss the hugs from their teachers. They miss being able to wave to their teachers. They miss being able to have that relationship with their teachers. And that to me was just like, it's beyond them and how selfless our kids are to be able to even articulate that, right? In a way of like, yeah, I miss my classmates and I miss recess.
Recess.
But they miss getting hugs from their teachers. How sweet is that? And how does that frame the conversation around how important our teachers are now? Not just, going back to what you said last week, or last episode about, yes, we're going to get to the academics. We're going to get to doing the math problems. But first is about, creating the relationships with the students, doing the icebreakers, the getting to know. And that just, to me, that conversation just proves how important that piece is before you can even dive into, the multiplication problems or anything else. It really is for our teachers around building that connection with the students and the students being able to feel like this is somebody that I trust and somebody that I love.
Just the energy, they miss the energy, and I think a lot of people could relate to that. And just walking through the hallway, seeing my friends, seeing the teachers, seeing the counselors. One of it was an aide who got me through my first years of teaching, and her kids, she's got kids, one of them's in 3rd grade, one of them's in 8th grade, and the 8th grader said,
I kind of hope for us to go back to school. Because, I don't like school, but I would rather sit in a classroom than at home. Because at home, there's, a lot more stuff to distract me. Because my phone will start buzzing in the middle of Zoom, and I'll go to, check it, and then I have to remember I'm in the middle of class.
And so she just misses being able to kind of access that education and being able to kind of stay focused. And although she feels that in the social element, she's still like, but yes, I understand why we can't go back right now. Right, and it goes back to that care. Like, it's so hard for me, and I would rather. And even her younger brother Nico, he was like, when I asked him, what's your favorite thing about this year so far?
My favorite part of the virtual learning is I don't know.
And then when I was like, okay, well, we can get back to that. No worries, Nico. And he was like, I said, well, what's the hardest part? And he's like, oh, I can answer that.
I miss recess and talking to my friends. I also miss giving hugs to my teachers.
Same thing. Like, we asked the boys too, and they were like,
Recess. I like school. School is a great time to have fun with my friends.
So do you miss being at school, or do you like learning at home?
Yes, I like learning at home, and I want to go to school.
You want to go back to school?
Yeah.
and it's just talking to other people besides their parents and interact. Yes, they have that outlet too, and they don't have it right now. I asked a couple of other kids as well, and I feel like everyone shows us the same sentiment, where they feel they're getting extra work. They're getting a lot more work. And they're like, I wouldn't even be doing all this work if I was at school. What's
Right.
going on?
It's like I get more work now than I did when we were in school, and like the homework, I'm getting so much homework, and it's not only is it a lot of homework, it's homework that I'm having a hard time being able to complete because it's hard. I don't know how to do it, and if you don't have the any help kind of with the homework at home, it's hard to do, right? I mean, shoot, like for me to help a high school kid, I mean, that was hard. But when I was the resource teacher at school, it's like, oh my gosh, I got to get tutoring myself.
I was listening to this podcast, an NPR podcast the other day, and I was interviewing a teacher, and I know that's our plan to talk to teachers next, but just to like go to your point about the teacher was saying, I didn't know how much work was enough homework or not enough work, right? Because I mean, because especially in the spring, this was all very new. But even now, it's if they're like Io, for example, that I interviewed, my little neighbor, he was like,
being at home doesn't mean that they should give us like twice the amount of homework to do. Like my math classes, it's like usually we have like a couple of problems each day, but he gives us like 10 problems each day. Like usually we would have 3.
they give us like 2 or 3 times the amount of work, and but he has to be on Zoom for 5 hours a day. And so I could see how being on Zoom for 5 hours a day, and then you're not moving, you're in the same place, and then you have to sit down and do, 3 or 4 times the amount of work. It could definitely feel like, even if it's technically the same amount of work that the teacher was expecting before, even just the sense of like not having any transitions and not having any difference in like your learning environment can at least give you that feeling of this is too much work or a lot of work.
I mean, I look at it like I wasn't always a huge fan of homework where the learning is new, right? Homework is supposed to really be a reinforcement, a practice of what you learned, right? And so now we even look at the connection. So I mean, the kiddos that I was talking to, it's not only hard to like log in, but they're getting kicked off of Zoom. The connection's poor, and so even in the synchronous learning, you're missing those pieces, right? So it's like if I'm supposed to do homework and it's based off of the lesson, and I couldn't get connected and I couldn't understand, I've missed parts. Well, shoot, how am I supposed to be able to even do the homework now as well? So it was even looking at ideas of I've seen teachers who are recording all of their synchronous sessions and they're uploading it somewhere so that if they did lose connection, that you can go back, or parents can go back and go ahead and refresh.
Or they're linking videos. They're linking like YouTube videos, right? Like lesson videos, because I've caught myself watching these videos because I don't want to teach math the way I learned it, because apparently that's the wrong way. You can't carry the one. Don't do that. Right. There's new methods now for math. And I'm like, oh, okay, I could tell you what that is. But so I've actually caught, I'm watching a lot of these YouTube videos now, lessons. And I guess it's a foundation for the more advanced math that they will, encounter later on. But I'm like, to your point, Abby, I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, you're in 2nd grade. Why is this like, why are you doing equations? But again, I am learning a new style of math, and I know that I'm not the only one.
Yeah, and and that's just like the students maybe not having connectivity. The students may be having connectivity issues, but the teachers have connectivity issues too. Like just this week, Roscoe came into the room into my meeting space and was like, sorry to interrupt, but my teacher, she's not on Zoom anymore. And then I go and all the kids were still on the Zoom meeting, and it was just the teacher that was gone. And so he was like, all the kids were just at that point, the funny part is that you see the boys all rambunctious, like, what's happening? And the girls are just sitting there kind of waiting. And then when the teacher comes back, the girls give the teacher a mouthful, like, well, this never happened to Miss Guerra. And I was like, oh my God. And there was like several of them, and I also found it funny that Roscoe, when I asked him like, hey, so what are you looking forward to the most in going back to school? And again, I thought it was going to be like seeing my friends or playing recess or starting my sports again, and his response was like,
we don't have to worry about bad connection.
Wow. Like even as a 1st grader, right? Like that's the thing that you're most looking forward to, is like this connection issue that you see. And then you'll see in the recording how, he starts mentioning all his classmates that have had connectivity issues. And now he can add his teacher to that list.
I know it's interesting. Like we had Nico that says,
I would want them to know that they should like, don't be like too hard. If they're like teachers that will be hard on some kids, they won't be too hard, because some kids are like going through a lot of things.
that was just so poignant for a third grader to just know that the lives of all of his friends, that they might be going through things, but on the flip side, it's also like, hey kids, same thing to your teachers. It's this mutual understanding of it's hard for everybody. A lot of people are going through things, and we got to be that family to go ahead and make sure that we're all taking care of each other.
Yeah, that sense of normalcy for them, right? Like, how do they feel like things are kind of normal? And, part of Roscoe's response when I asked, what do you like that your teacher does? He said, celebrate birthdays, So, again, to your point about like, this gives them a sense of normalcy because it's something that the teacher would regularly do. And in this environment, it's just a relief to see that we're trying to keep those small things that might seem small to us, but to the kids, it means the world to them to be able to feel like, oh, things are kind of normal because this is what we usually do at school. Another point I wanted to bring up about like, you said it's challenging for everyone. And I remember Jada mentioning in her interview that
having my own private area, that way, because at school we would also have our own private area. It's kind of a safe area for me to spread out all of my things because they let me talk about what I want to do here, and my parents don't judge what I'm saying about class.
we all know this because we were all teachers. We create our environment, and sometimes we have to be vulnerable, and sometimes the students have to be vulnerable. And so now having this extra judgment layer of parents, it's so important that as parents, we kind of let the kids, do what they would regularly do as much as possible, and even via Zoom.
When you all say about like extracurricular activities or even enrichment classes that kids are being offered for kids, I know that one of the biggest hesitations is that because kids are already on screen so much, they don't want to jump on screen for an enrichment course, to draw or to do, I don't know, even taekwondo, whatever it is, right? Because everything's via Zoom, and zoomed out is a real deal. Like people are like kids alike,
I'm zoomed out.
Yeah. People are zoomed out, and so I think that asynchronous work is great and it's necessary, but at the same time, it's just a lot of it. And I almost wish that at some point, and I know we're almost reaching like the end of Q1, I would say, of this fall, that someone does some type of PSA to teachers, like, you guys are doing the best job done. It's okay. Let's scale down on work, because at the same time, you're giving yourself more work because you also have to put all that together, and you're probably checking it most likely as well. And so I feel like we're all over, like on overdrive, right? We're overcompensating because we're missing something. People are just doing all kinds of stuff because it might be overeating, it might be over drinking, it might be overrunning, I don't know, because we are missing a lot of the connections that we typically would have. And I think we just need to pause. And I feel like it's been 6 months that we've been in quarantine. And let's reassess where we're at, because we got to buckle down, and it's going to be a little bit longer.
I know that we are all working on, the effectiveness of the distance learning, the remote learning, and it is the building of the connections and the relationships and the classroom culture, and really trying to make sure that we are gauging that level of instruction and engagement, with the distance learning piece. But at the same time, you have the schools really preparing for what the reopening looks like, physical reopening, when you're able to go back on campus. And so most of the schools that I work with, and most of the kiddos that go to the schools that I work, they're not back in yet. However, there are some students who are back in. They're back in hybrid model, and the things that the school leaders did to prepare them to even have that lowered anxiety for parents as well as students, to be able to feel comfortable coming on back, to feel safe. And so having those videos from the principal, I mean, this mother is super, she is very, very conscious, and she's been quarantining, isolating, all that. And it made her feel like, okay, they've got a plan. All right, that's what it's going to look like. I feel good with being able to send Emma on back. Cool. All right. And even with Emma, it's like, okay, I saw the video. Now I know what to expect. And now my teachers are going to go ahead and go over those processes and procedures with me, and those little dots that are 6 feet apart as they're entering the campus.
Is everyone good with standing on their dots?
No, but yeah.
Is it hard to stay on the dots?
Yeah.
It is.
I asked her, like, hey, so what happens if you get off your dot? And she was like, oh, you have to go back to your line, to the back of the line, and the next person goes and steals your spot. And so I was like, ooh, so if I was a kid, I would not want to get off my dot because I wouldn't want somebody to go and take my place, and I would not want to have to go to the back of the line. Got it. All right. So just, having the young kids even kind of understand that. Another school that I work with, it's a middle school video. So it's an organization that's got about, multiple schools. And they created a little social story because they're getting ready for at least one-on-one coming on back, right? Nobody's back yet. So they're starting off with the one-on-one, doing assessments. And she created a whole video where, it's like, hey, you're going to park here. Remember the parking lot? All right. And then you're going to walk over here. And this is where you're going to get your temp check. And this is where you're going to answer your questions. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and say bye, Mom and Dad. Take them to the restroom. Okay. It's disinfected. And then we're going to walk. And they don't have dots. They have stars. And so as they're walking through the campus, it was like, follow the stars, reach for the stars. And I just thought that was just another element of like, oh, I'm staying on my little 6 feet and I'm reaching for the stars. Just having those elements of creativity, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, that is a really great way of like using a bad situation and making it a really great space for students to feel encouraged. I just went this week to do STAR testing at Roscoe School. So STAR testing, they're allowed to go into the school. And this whole time I've been saying, I don't know what type of reinsurance I will need to feel like I am comfortable taking him back to school, right? And a couple of the kids said, like, I know Jada said, well, I just want the coronavirus to be under control, right? So it just has to be controlled, and she would feel safer doing that. And make sure that all the kids wear masks, but she doesn't know if all the kids will feel comfortable wearing masks, right? So even that piece was like, you're still thinking about other people. How amazing. But when I went into Roscoe School, before we even walked inside the building, there was somebody taking a temperature check, and they took his temperature, they took my temperature, and then they sent that they had like meeting points in different spaces. So it made me feel good to know that there was like some steps that the school was doing, and at least it gave me a glimpse of like, okay, so this is our new normal. I don't know when it's getting to your point about like, I'm hoping and we're nowhere near close, but I don't know that we'll ever go back to the way that we were. I'm not saying that we're going to wear masks forever. And I'm not saying that we're going to have to social distance forever, but I do think that our new normal is going to be like a huge level of scrutiny in terms of personal space. And in terms of, and I think we'll be wearing masks at least for another year, personally.
No, for sure. And I think that one thing that we're all learning, I think, from this, which I think is a great gift, is just learning to listen to one another. I know that's one thing that I really enjoyed this week, actually, taking the time and pausing and listening to all the kids that we talked to. And I was like, man, they're just really looking. I know, and we know this, and they're sponges and they're absorbing everything, but they really have some gems to drop. So we really need to just kind of like pause and hear them out as well, because they themselves have a lot of ideas on how we could go back, because they're ready. And we're ready. It's
bringing me back to like, why did we get into what we're doing? Like, why did we even get into education? Why did we decide to, work with students? And it goes back to like, I really want to like listen to them. I really want to hear what they're going through, how they're feeling, their input, because it reminds us and it brings us back to center of like, my focus is clear. My focus is clear that, we're doing all this for kiddos. And so then how can we support teachers in doing what needs to happen for our kiddos? And it's all just, being patient with everybody, to be able to check in with one another, to be able to hear them out. I've told clients this week, I've told friends and colleagues this week, like, hey, if you need to just call and cry, if you need to just call and vent, if you just need to call and, use me as a bunch of like that's what I'm here for, and same thing on that end. I've got to also have somebody that I can do that with as well. Being able to listen to one another and being able to take all of that into consideration in terms of all of our planning and our actions, what we do. And then really I look at it like I'm a special educator. I mean, we're all former teachers. And so really that scaffolding piece of, yes, we are really working on doing our best to improve what we're doing in the distance learning world. And there's so much progress that has been made. And then at the same time, being able to go ahead and prime students and scaffold all the different steps of, all right, this is what it's going to look like. This it might look like. And let's go ahead and get ready so that we can go ahead and lower those levels of anxiety for teachers as well as families, as well as students, to be able to get ready for what it might look like when we come on back.
I guess more than a final thought, it's an acknowledgement that, the students that we interviewed, the kids that we were able to talk to have a certain amount of privilege, right? All these kids are not home insecure, are not food insecure. They get their basic needs met. And so I just want to acknowledge that first and foremost. I know that this is a different population of students we've interviewed. And so just acknowledging that, these lived experiences are going to vary from student to student.
You're right. We don't have access to all types of kids. And we just, I think bottom line is we can't assume. We can't assume that kids are able to connect or not able to connect, or that they like distance learning, or that the fact that some kids are really enjoying, and adults as well, not having to get fully dressed. I've known a couple of adults who also have said they haven't worn actual jeans in a long time or dress clothes in a long time. Because, you got to just professional from the waist up. But I think that one thing that I learned this week is just pausing a little bit more and listening to our kids and really asking how they're doing and asking what they need and just checking in on them, because they are so honest and don't have any hesitation to share what's really going on. And it's really interesting to hear their take on what's taking place. This week, our final thought is brought to, I'm very proud of this, one of my sons. And again, we asked if he had a wish for this academic year, what would it be? And so here are his thoughts.
I wish this coronavirus is over and I could go to school, have my normal life, and see all my friends. But not just for me, but for everyone who is also stuck in it.
Thank you all so much for joining us on Be That One. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on IG at BeThatOne_podcast and Twitter at BeThat1podcast. Comment with any feedback and input. Check out the resources listed as well. And, feel free to email bethatone.podcast@gmail.com with any questions you might have. And so until next time, this is Christine.
This is Abby.
And Erica.